Mhm. All right, and we're back. This is Hook and Ladder. Week 4, we're flying through the season. September football is basically over. And we'll start with Thursday night, that West Virginia Tech game. JT Daniels played pretty well.
Wide receivers for him played well as well. They had some drops earlier in the season that were costing him some games, mainly that first one against Pitt.
Right.
But JT Daniels looked pretty good.
Yeah.
Virginia Tech's got a great atmosphere, entering the stadium with Enter Sandman, one of the better entrances in all of college football. Just really great atmosphere.
He's not recruiting.
Huh?
Just not recruiting?
No, I mean, I said it before on this channel. I think the other schools coming into that, I forget what it's called.
Virginia
I think
Beach area?
Yeah, it's like the Tidewater area, something like that. All these other schools coming in and getting that top talent out of the area, where Virginia Tech doesn't have like the lion's share of the guys anymore from there. It's hurting them. But still one of the greatest atmospheres in all of college football, in my opinion. But it was a fun game. I enjoyed watching this one.
Yeah, we got to check it out one of these days.
I watched a little bit of the Illinois game against Chattanooga. I always watch it for Jerry.
Right.
My brother-in-law, Jerry, big Illinois fan. So I watched it. They looked a lot better than they have. They threw the ball a lot.
Yeah.
They've got some really good playmakers at wide receiver. Decent running back. Who knows? Maybe Brett will get a little lucky and they'll beat some teams in the Big Ten they're not supposed to beat.
Did you watch any of this Virginia-Syracuse game Friday night?
I watched pretty much the whole thing. Syracuse looked good first half. They looked real good. And then the second half, they looked like dog shit. They were able to pull it out. Same thing, kind of same deal with Illinois. Syracuse has got some good wide receivers.
Yeah.
Got a decent quarterback play and a decent running back. They're looking a lot better this year so far than they have the last 3 or 4 years.
Right.
They've won some exciting games. I believe they're now 4-0.
Syracuse won 22-20 against Virginia. The Georgia-Kent State game, watched some of that at Brett's place. Georgia didn't look on point, didn't look crisp, but they did win 39-22. Kent State had some playmakers on
Kent State looked like a pretty good football team.
Yeah.
They were there ready to play. That's no excuse. When you're the number 1 team in the country, you've got to handle these kind of opponents a little easier. I feel, noon kick, number 1 team in the country, they sleptwalk through this thing, but no excuse.
Yeah.
It looked to me like the last game 2 weeks ago when Georgia played a cupcake. They basically could move the football at will. They get in the red zone and they start trying some things, trying to force it to certain guys. Like, hey, this guy maybe hasn't scored a touchdown this season. Let's try to get him in the end zone. That's what it looked like to me, that first cupcake. And this weekend against Kent State, they didn't punt a single time. They had almost 600 yards of total offense. But they went down in the red zone three or four times and set up field goals and touchdowns. And you can't do that in SEC play. But I think that's the kind of game maybe Kirby secretly wanted, a tougher game that he can really ride it in practice and say, you guys aren't as good as the media says you are. But, they got the win, survive, and advance. And there was not a single point in this game where I felt the outcome was in doubt.
Right.
But, everybody has those type of games. I mean, even Alabama last year against Auburn. I know Auburn is a rivalry game and is an SEC opponent, but that game should have never been close, and they almost lost the thing. So every team, sometimes, you got to bring your A game every week.
That's right, because you never know who's going to show up. Alabama handles Vanderbilt 55-3. That was last night, wasn't it?
Yeah, 7:30 kick. Yeah. I mean, it was the Bryce Young show, like pretty much every Alabama game is. He looked good. Yeah. Threw for almost 400 yards, a boatload of touchdowns. Vanderbilt, what can you say? They're raising the GPA of the SEC, and that's pretty much all they're there for. And that in baseball.
Right. Ohio State knocks off Wisconsin 52-21. C.J. Stroud does it again.
Yeah, I mean, C.J. Stroud's basically basically Bryce Young. Every week, he's throwing for 1 million yards and 10,000 touchdowns. Wisconsin's garbage. They've got a really good running back, but Mertz is terrible. I mean, they're just a bad football team.
That kid's been overrated.
It's now the time in his career we can say, all right, he's overrated, or maybe he just wasn't in the right system or something like that. But yeah, Ohio State just looked good. Blackout game at night at the Shoe. Uniforms look really cool. Watched a little bit of this game, but not much.
Yeah. Michigan versus Maryland. Maryland gave Michigan a scare there.
Yeah,
34-27.
Didn't help Maryland. They muffed the opening kickoff. Michigan got it. But, Blake Corum looked really good again, running the football for Michigan in the absence of Donovan Edwards, who's out with an injury. Michigan was missing their tight end and a couple other guys, but they managed to pull this one out, 34-27. Maryland played good. This was going to be the test. All week long you heard, okay, Michigan is going to have a test in Maryland.
Right.
They got a good football team, and it was a good game.
Okay.
Probably one of the better games of the day.
Right.
And then this one right here we're going to talk about.
Another great game. Clemson versus Wake Forest. Clemson in double overtime beat Wake Forest 51-45. Yeah.
Back and forth, fourth quarter. Good game. DJ was really, really good. Threw for a boatload of yards, threw 5 touchdowns in the game. Defensively, I was really surprised. I thought Clemson's defensive front would just smother Wake Forest. It would be kind of like a, slow boiler situation where turn the game on, it's 13-0, Clemson's winning, you turn it off and turn it back on in the fourth quarter, it's 35-0 kind of deal. But that Clemson secondary got had. Hartman's not a bad QB.
Right.
He's been around for a while. Wake Forest is an experienced team, the 21 ranked team in the country. Whether I agree with that or not doesn't really matter. They're a decent football team, and Clemson got tested. In fact, if you look at the top 5, Georgia, Alabama, Ohio State, Michigan, and Clemson, all 5 teams have been tested so far this season. Georgia's the only one that got tested by basically what we would call a cupcake team. Still, decent team. They won their conference last year. Kent State did. But all 5 of these teams have been tested thus far, with 3 of them being this week, yesterday.
Right. Where are we at? Oklahoma got knocked off by Kansas State, 41-34. A lot of people have been high on Oklahoma, and I thought they'd win the Big 12.
I
haven't seen it. They may still win the Big 12.
Yeah, because Oklahoma State's going to be involved, but they're going to pull in Oklahoma State and lose. Something they're not supposed to do, kind of like Oklahoma did last night. But Kansas State has knocked off Oklahoma before, so this wasn't a huge shock. I watched all of this game, and it was getting towards the end, and I was like, all right, Kansas State's about to screw this up, and they just never did. They just kept running the football very well. They made a couple of really nice pass plays toward the end there.
You see this kid's name, Adrian Martinez? He's got to be pushing 30.
He played in Nebraska last year, and he looked so different. In fact, for a little bit, I was like, it's got to be a different guy. He looked so different than he did at Nebraska. I mean, he looked like a good athlete.
Yeah.
That didn't happen on Scott Frost. But good for Kansas State. They knock off Oklahoma once again.
Yeah, good for them. USC, a nail-biter against Oregon State, 17-14. I would not expect seeing that score.
No, and Oregon State, if I'm not mistaken, was leading the conference in turnover margin. And USC goes in there and struggles, got the win. That's all that really matters, won by 3. But big props to Oregon State for playing well. Big props to USC, too, for hanging in there and not getting nervous because it was getting close, not winning like they've been used to winning so far this season. Kind of maybe potential maybe rematch later on in the season in the Big 12 championship game. You never know, but USC, in my opinion, is the outright front runner. We will talk about some of the Big 12, Pac-12 teams rather here in a second.
Yes.
But that conference is looking a lot of fun so far this season.
Yes. Number 8 in the country, Kentucky knocks off Northern Illinois 31-23. You see any of this one?
No, but I mean, I'm not really impressed.
No. Kentucky's kind of overrated at this point.
I think they are as well.
Arkansas versus Texas A&M. Texas A&M knocked off Arkansas 23-21.
KJ Jefferson fumbled trying to jump into the end zone, like over the top kind of play. Fumbled. They pick it up, run it all the way back. Would have been 21-7. Instead, it was 14-14. 14-point swing. To me, that was the difference of the game. I mean, Arkansas did a really good job of coming back in the second half after giving up, or after a missed field goal by A&M, which basically would have iced it. I think it would have made Arkansas score a touchdown. They marched down the field to go to kick the game-winning field goal, but the play before they had a botched snap, knock them back about 15 yards, and you just kind of start thinking, one mistake by an underdog like that is going to cost you. We saw a botched snap last week with South Florida botched the snap against the Gators and ended up missing the field goal, losing. Same thing happened here. The poor bastard kicker donked it off the post. came down in the end zone. Texas A&M survives. Really, either team could have won this game, but I really thought Arkansas first half, that dive in the end zone, he gets the football and tries to hold it over, and it was about 2.5 minutes left to go in the half. Pops up, fumble, pops in the air, guy is like, oh, it's in my hands. He catches it, laterals it to his teammate, he runs it in for touchdown. Completely changed the complexion of the game, in my opinion, in A&M's favor. Yeah. And they got a game manager at quarterback in Max Johnson. He's making the right plays. He's running the football. He did it last week against Miami. He did it last night against Arkansas. He's keeping them in it, keeping drives alive with his feet.
Yeah. Our next game was the 3:30 game on CBS yesterday. Florida at Tennessee. Tennessee's on top, 38-33. It was a good game.
Really good game. High scoring. There was a lot of big plays. Every time Tennessee threw a big punch at Florida, Florida came back with their counter punch. Anthony Richardson been looking like crap all year long unless he's running the football. Looked really good throwing it yesterday. I mean, he didn't have any lights-out performance by any stretch of imagination, but he threw the ball well enough to put his team in position to win. They just could not keep Tennessee from scoring. When it was crucial times, they were letting in, third and long, couldn't get off the field. Hendon Hooker, 300 yards passing, another 100 yards rushing. He looked amazing. And we watched him a lot last year. Yeah. There was a game last year that I sat there and watched every single play of a Tennessee game. I was at a bar in Florida, and I'm watching the game, and I'm like, Hendon Hooker's bad. I mean, he's got wideouts open all over the field and can't hit him. Complete 180 this season. He's looking amazing. Probably played himself into the Heisman conversation yesterday.
For now.
Yeah, for now. He looked really good yesterday. Tennessee looked really good. Yeah. And I don't think Florida's a good football team at all. I think they're mediocre. Is probably putting it nicely. So is this a huge win by Tennessee, like a big deal? Like, are they back? Or is they just a better team beating up on a crappy Florida team?
Well, we're going to find out a lot about Tennessee in the next couple of weeks.
Yes.
Their schedule's coming up real soon, so we'll know a lot. By the end of October, we'll know what Tennessee is or is not. NC State knocked over UConn 41-10. Utah knocked off Arizona State 34-13.
Arizona State just fired Herm Edwards last week. Utah is another team in the Pac-12 that, they lost to Florida that first game in the Swamp. They were a top 10 team. Obviously, they dropped. They've looked good since. I like them a lot. They're fun to watch. I watched a little bit of this game, actually most of this game yesterday. But I still think USC's got more firepower than Utah does. What USC's lacking on defense, which honestly this season we haven't really seen a whole lot of bad defensive play. They played quite well on that side of the football. Their offense is really good, very explosive. They got a lot of playmakers. Got Oregon's running back from last year, Dye, ran for over 100 yards yesterday for USC. Their firepower, I think, can outscore anybody in the conference. Can somebody's defense step up to slow them down, and then that team score on USC's defense? That's what I'm looking at going forward. They play each other in like 2 weeks, 2-3 weeks. So that'll be probably a kind of a two different divisions in the conference, but still that'll be the marquee matchup.
Right. Penn State knocks off Central Michigan 33-14. That was a little closer earlier than it probably should have been. Oregon knocked off Washington State in a shootout, 44-41. I think Oregon scored 29 points in the fourth quarter.
Big comeback for Dan Lanning and company. Bo Nix, 430 yards passing the football. Bo Nix playing excellent ever since getting shellacked by Georgia in week 1. He's basically been off the charts good, both throwing and running the football. Oregon's looking like the team kind of everybody thought they might be at the beginning of the season, which is a top 10, 15 type team that could possibly contend in the Pac-12 North if things fall into place for them. You never know. I mean, basically the slate is clean for the top teams in the Pac-12 in conference play. They're going to have to play Utah, and if I'm not mistaken, they're in the same side of the division there. So we'll see what happens, but the Pac-12 is looking like a lot of fun this season.
And again, win and survive. That's the name of the game. Tulsa took on Ole Miss. Ole Miss won 35-27.
A little closer than I would have anticipated.
Baylor knocked off Iowa State 31-24. Then you got the Stanford-Washington game. Washington defeated Stanford 40-22.
Yep. Thank you very much, Washington. Everybody knows how much I hate Stanford, so glad they lost that game. Screw them.
Yep.
Washington, another Pac-12 team that looks really, really good.
Yeah.
So, I mean, there's going to be some teams left out in the Pac-12. They're going to be top 15 teams, maybe one, possibly two losses on their record that are going to be fighting for a really big bowl game, you know, a New Year's Day bowl game. Someone's definitely, this is the year they break the, you know, they're coming off the schneid. It's been a long time since the Pac-12 has had a team in the playoffs, which I believe was Washington, playing, I think it was Alabama in the Peach Bowl, like about 4 or 5 years ago, maybe. I think, I'm pretty much saying the Pac-12 is going to have a team in the playoffs.
It'll be representative this year, possibly. Texas lost to Texas Tech 37-34.
Little upset there. Lost in OT.
Yeah,
there was a couple of mild upsets by teams that weren't super high ranked, but upsets nonetheless.
Yeah. Your alma mater, Rhode Island, gave Pittsburgh a fight. They lost 45-24, but all in all, they did put up a fight.
The fighting Rhode Island Rams, way to go! Yeah. You know, good for them.
And an upset special, Middle Tennessee knocked off Miami 45-31.
The first time in history they've beaten a ranked opponent. Miami, don't let somebody beat you twice. Well, they did. They lost a heartbreaker where they basically weren't ready to be in that moment last week against A&M, and then they just let it linger all the way till yesterday. Get beat by Middle Tennessee State. If I'm not mistaken, didn't the QB from Miami get benched in this game? Where he was like, you know, like one of the Todd McShay top NFL draft. I didn't see that yet last week against A&M. He didn't look good at all.
No.
Wide receivers didn't help him out at all either, but, you know.
Yeah, we were actually at the Auburn, Missouri, at the end of the game. We were walking into the bar, and Auburn just kicked the field goal to win the game.
Well, they kicked the field goal.
And then it was an overtime.
They missed the field goal.
Okay.
The Missouri was offside, so they got another chance, kicked it again. That was overtime. Missouri gets the football. First play, the guy runs it in for the touchdown. But as he's going in, he does this and drops the football.
Yes.
Touchback, Auburn wins. Luckiest team in all of the land.
Yes.
Ugly game. Nobody scored in the second half at all. 14-14 first half. Some reason Tank Bigsby didn't play in the second half. I kind of think that dude's basically hanging it up for the year. Getting ready for the NFL. I mean, he's an excellent running back.
They're not using him properly.
They're not. If he's in a game like this against a team like Missouri, no way he's going for under 100 yards rushing and probably getting a couple of scores. And Auburn wins a little more handily, but he didn't even get in the second half. They both look like hot garbage. Although I will say the running from the quarterback looked a lot better with Ashford than it did with TJ Finley. Either way, Brian Harson's out at the end of the season. I don't really care what happens from this point on. Auburn's terrible. Missouri's terrible. It's only going to get worse for both of them. Auburn has to play, I think, LSU next week, and Missouri plays Georgia. Yeah. So, have fun with that next week, guys. But, awful game.
Yeah, a couple other games to speak of. Kansas against the undefeated Duke Blue Devils. Kansas knocked off Duke 35-27.
How is Kansas not ranked right now? I mean,
I don't know.
It's Kansas. And I think that's maybe playing into some of these pollsters' minds.
Right.
They're undefeated, and they're looking pretty good.
And they just beat another undefeated team.
Yep. So, I mean, just at least throw them a bone and put them 25.
Notre Dame bounces back after a couple weeks of kind of struggling. They beat North Carolina, which is,
Gene Chizik. This is going to be your last year coaching defense at North Carolina. I think the shine of, what's his face? Why can't I think of his name? The coach of North Carolina right now.
Mac Jones?
Yeah, Mac Brown. Why the shine's kind of wearing off on him. They don't look good unless they only look good on offense. They look really bad in defense all season long. They've looked bad on defense. We watched Notre Dame at my house last week, and they looked awful. They couldn't do anything and almost lost to Cal.
Yes.
I picked this game, so I went, I think, 8-2 in my picks this week. And this was one of my losses. I thought North Carolina was going to win. It's like they don't play defense. No. But there's no way the Notre Dame team I watched last week can compete with them scoring. They can't keep pace.
Of course.
And North Carolina puts up 32 points, but somehow Notre Dame scored 45. I saw that score, and I was like, wow, that's a big shocker. Good for Notre Dame. They looked like crap so far this season, even in their first win last week, and it was really good yesterday.
Speaking of a team that looked disappointed, Michigan State lost to Minnesota 34-7.
And this was my other loss.
Yeah.
Because after the last week losing to Washington like they did, I thought, no way in hell is Mel Tucker going to let his team get beat 2 weeks in a row.
2 weeks in a row.
I knew that Tanner Morgan's been there for like 1,000 years at Minnesota. He's like a ninth year senior. But I didn't think Michigan State would allow what happened at Washington to happen again. And Minnesota doesn't have the kind of passing attack and good wide receivers that Washington has. And yet Minnesota beat the hell out of them. Right. Really disappointed in Michigan State. They got a lot of guys in the portal. They were looking good the first couple weeks of the season. Yeah, their secondary is not great, but I thought they could at least make a little bit of noise in the Big Ten. And now basically it looks like they're just going to be like a 4-5 loss team.
Yeah. That's unfortunate. Appalachian State lost to James Madison. After the 3-week run they were on, they lose to James Madison.
Kind of felt that was they were about due for a letdown, but it sucks because I like App State.
Yeah. Was there any other games you want to discuss?
Not really. I mean, Florida State looked pretty good. They're finally ranked again. The polls came out today. They're ranked, I think, like 23rd, 24th, something like that. Good to see Florida State back. Yeah. Not back, but
playing well.
Better than we've seen in the last like 4 or 5 years. So it's nice to see them playing well. Nothing really else kind of stood out this past week for me.
Well, let's talk about next week's games, next week's matchups. Washington's going to be at UCLA. It's a 10:30 start Friday night. You can get a ticket in the Rose Bowl for $23.
That should be a sneaky good game. I don't think UCLA is all that good, but they do have a talented and experienced quarterback.
Right.
So that's a road game for Washington. I still expect them to win, but that could get a little crazy.
Friday night in the Pac-12.
Exactly.
You never know. Michigan got Iowa at noon.
I think Michigan's going to roll them so bad.
Yeah. The games are starting to get better this week.
Yeah.
It's like Kentucky against Ole Miss at Ole Miss. It's a noon game. That's a number 7 versus number 14. That's going to be a good matchup.
I bet Ole Miss takes them down.
I wouldn't doubt it. Oklahoma's got TCU.
Good bounce back game for Oklahoma after last night's loss.
Yeah. Purdue against Minnesota. Minnesota's now ranked. $67 you can get that ticket if you want to fly to Minneapolis. Let's see. We got Kansas State's taking on Texas Tech, coming off a big win. We'll see what happens there. We can get a ticket for $18.
Ain't bad.
No. Florida's taking on Eastern Washington.
Utah, Oregon State at Utah.
Yeah.
So that's 5 p.m. Eastern time. It should be a decent game. Oregon State's not a bad football team.
That's a 2 o'clock. That's actually just less than 11 o'clock start.
Yeah, but is that 2 p.m. Pac-12 time?
That's a noon start. That's a noon start.
Right.
That's a 2 o'clock in Utah. Let's see. Arkansas, Alabama, 3:30 game. That could be interesting.
Yeah, Arkansas heartbreaker last night. I'm wondering if they're going to be up for it.
At home, 3:30.
I mean, still, that's the game of the week that pretty much everyone's going to have on TV.
Right.
That doesn't really look like it's going to be a decent game, in my opinion. I might kind of skip that and watch some of these other games like Baylor, Oklahoma State, number 9, Oklahoma State at number 16, Baylor. That'd be a good game. Yeah. Penn State's taking on Northwestern. It's always fun watching Northwestern get beat because I keep waiting for that dude to just leave Northwestern and go take a job somewhere else where he's actually got offensive skilled players.
Yeah.
Runs a good defensive scheme, though.
Right. Wake Forest is going to be in Tallahassee at Florida State.
That's the game I'll probably have on the TV.
Yeah.
3:30. Florida State ranked. Wake Forest coming off that heartbreaking loss yesterday. How are they going to react?
Yeah.
How's Florida State going to react? Having the successful season so far they've had, going up against another test. They've had a couple of tests so far this year.
They played well.
Yeah.
Let's see. Iowa State's taking on Kansas at 3:30.
That'd be a decent game.
Yeah.
A lot of 3:30 games. Decent 3:30 games.
Yeah. Michigan State at Maryland.
I foresee a lot of flipping.
Yeah.
Back and forth.
Virginia Tech taking on North Carolina. Can North Carolina stop somebody?
Nope.
I doubt it.
Nope.
Let's see what
They're
else.
going to lose 6 games.
Yeah. Appalachian State taking on the Citadel at 3:30. Wow. They have $71 to go see those guys play.
A&M at Mississippi State. Mississippi State's ranked, I think, now after winning yesterday. That should be a good game. Another third straight test for A&M. They lost their top wide receiver yesterday. Some kind of knee injury. I haven't heard the extent just yet, but it didn't look good when he did it.
Look at that. An SEC matchup for $15.
Yeah.
Let's see what
Mississippi State's a fun place to see a game in as well.
Yeah, he keeps
All
on
the cowbells going off there, like they're shaking them. It's pretty cool.
Cal taking on Washington State.
Decent game. 9. What was it? What time does that say?
5 o'clock.
5:30.
Yeah, 5:30.
LSU at Auburn is a night game. That's an
interesting matchup, right?
That is, and then the fact that they threw that game at night is kind of a slap in the face to a lot of people, in my opinion.
Yes.
I expect LSU to beat the hell out of them.
Yeah, I do too. Let's see. Georgia against Missouri, 7:30.
Snoozer.
Yeah.
Oh, and NC State, number 10, NC State at number 5, Clemson. I believe this is going to be Clemson's first real big test. Obviously, it was yesterday, but when looking at the schedule preseason, I thought this was going to be their first real big test. 7:30 ABC, that's the game I'll probably have on, along with that West Virginia Texas game. That looks pretty good, too.
$4 you can go see that game. $4.
Are you serious?
Yep.
Where is this being played?
Texas.
No way, for $4?
Yes.
Dude, hell yeah, let's go.
Get a book a flight to Austin.
Gotta find a place to stay, but dude, let's do that.
We leave early. We just stay up partying on the plane Sunday morning. We can do it. Georgia Tech's taking on Pittsburgh. Their head coach got canned today.
I heard he got let go today. I don't think it's been the official announcement till tomorrow, but there was some college football beat writers that got the word out that he's been told he's been relieved of his duties, and they've named one of the assistants the interim. Yeah. Looking like tomorrow as well, they're going to get rid of the athletic director.
It happened. Sorry to hear that, but that's just the name of the sport, name of the game. Arizona State at USC, 10:30 start. So after you've been drinking all day, there's at least 1 or 2 more games.
Yeah, we get to watch Stanford get blown out by Oregon. Let's go, Ducks. Come on. Let's get our 4th straight game of good Bo Nix to beat the hell out of Stanford.
There you go.
I'll probably fall asleep at some point during that game.
Yeah. Well, I guess that concludes this week's episode.
Yeah, some pretty good games next week.
Yeah, we're going to finish off September Friday night and starting next Saturday. It's
October 1st.
All right. Well, you guys have a good day. Have a good week, and we'll see you guys next week.
See ya.
All right.